The Running Man is an action comedy taking place in a dystopian futuristic America. It follows Ben Richards, played by Glenn Powell, a father struggling to find work to pay for his child's medical treatment. With no other options, he reluctantly enters a game show called The Running Man, where he has to survive 30 days with the nation hunting him down and a stream of money going toward his wife and child. As the game goes on, Ben becomes both a national obsession and a symbol of defiance, forced to face not just his hunters, but the system that turned his struggle into entertainment. So this movie is an adaptation of the Stephen King novel by the same name. This is actually the 4th Stephen King movie to be released this year, following The Monkey, The Life of Chuck, and The Long Walk. This novel has previously been adapted for the screen with the 1987 film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but this one is quite different. This one leans a little bit harder into criticizing reality television. The movie skewers reality TV game shows for how they dehumanize participants in pursuit of ratings and profit. Contestants are manipulated and framed as villains, even when their choices are dictated by circumstance. It also highlights how staged and fake these shows can be, twisting the truth to create drama. By showing how the show twists the truth and exploits the struggle of its participants, the film exposes the moral cost of entertainment built on exploitation. And the root of that struggle is something the movie also explores. It has some loose commentary on class disparity. It digs into how people with fewer resources are forced into impossible situations just to survive, while those with wealth and power watch from a distance, largely untouched by the consequences. The film shows how the system devalues the less fortunate, turning their struggles into spectacle for the upper class to consume. In typical fashion of Edgar Wright's movies, this one really leans into barbarism. It's the type of action comedy that doesn't necessarily want to be immersive, so much as it relishes in holding up 2 middle fingers, figuratively speaking. Wright is a director who's always thinking about how to sprinkle humor on top of things. There's hardly an ounce of action in this movie that doesn't wear the comedy aspect on its sleeve. Whenever Ben is evading the hunters and battles are going down, there are cartoon-like antics going down left and right, like killing people with super soakers. I almost want to compare this movie to Idiocracy, almost, because it's a dystopian future where the very things that plague our country are satirized in cheeseball ways. It's very stylish in its editing, channeling a little bit of Wright's energy from Scott Pilgrim, using unconventional visual flair to make the movie stand out. So the movie doesn't take itself seriously a good bit of the time, which tonally conflicts with some of the more serious subjects and themes, but more on that later. This is definitely a movie that needs a strong story and a compelling protagonist, and for the most part, it gets there with Glenn Powell's Ben Richards. He's flawed in that he's tempered, but he's morally grounded when it comes to the things that are important. This one flaw definitely adds an interesting layer to his character. It makes him a more fiery symbol for the viewers to relate to. The movie is sort of an outcry against the system, something that a lot of angry people can relate to. So is his seriousness a flaw for him to overcome throughout the movie? Well, you might expect that, but it's less about overcoming flaws as it is about overcoming circumstances. So it proves to be less relevant as the movie progresses. His seriousness is something that often feels like the butt of a joke since the world around him is so barbaric. Glenn Powell is certainly making focused career moves, establishing himself as a pretty solid comedy actor. He's the type of guy you would look at and expect to play stereotypical handsome guy roles, like pulpy rom-coms or more serious action flicks. But he does such a great job of leaning into the absurdity of his characters while still making them feel grounded and real. He also seems to be trying to make himself into a typecast as a master of disguise, following Chad Powers and Hitman, which is honestly kind of cool. The ways that he embodies these alternate personalities is cheesy in all the right ways. As much as he could have a solid career playing more serious roles, he's clearly carving out a niche where he can mix comedy and charm without losing credibility for his acting chops. The supporting cast is solid, though it's hard to call anyone in particular a standout, since everyone either doesn't get that much screen time or has roles that aren't crucial to the film. Let's just rapid fire through them real quick. It's pretty enjoyable seeing Coleman Domingo turn up the flair and intensity as the wildcard game show host. Josh Brolin is perfect as the horrendously shallow entertainment tycoon. Michael Cera is entertaining, but perhaps not a particularly inspired casting choice. Honestly, his character could have been played by anyone. Daniel Ezra brought a fun energy to the movie, but same deal with Michael Cera. A lot of people could have played this character. Amelia Jones was pretty solid. She did a good job of channeling the fear of her character in a convincing manner. Jamie Lawson didn't get much screen time, so she was pretty forgettable. Same with William H. Macy, who only really had one scene. And then Katie O'Brien and Martin Hurley played very fun roles, with Martin, of course, being the clueless dork who's just happy to be there, despite the grim circumstances. So the movie delivers on the fun and spectacle, but where it really comes up short is in how flimsy some of the plot details are. It loses all feasibility in how convenient the happenings and the supporting character motives are, People keep doing things to help Ben and then giving unconvincing reasons as to why. On one hand, the movie kind of leans into that mediocrity and it's a little bit dumb with its humor, so it could be said that these lazy writing cop-outs kind of line up with that tone. It doesn't super feel that way though, because of how serious some of the story elements are and the underlying subjects that the movie is critiquing. That all makes it quite a bit more serious, but it keeps jumping back and forth between these serious moods and these cheeseball action comedy spurts, and the result is a rather tone-deaf movie. You're also kind of always one step ahead of the story, so whenever characters are trying to deceive each other, it never comes off as a plot twist because you just kind of see those things coming. Some of that is fueled by our understanding of generative AI and the fact that some of these characters are likely using it. Like, we don't need to ask how these characters were able to make and use deepfake footage so quickly. Quick side note, this movie actually directly acknowledges the notion that AI content will completely overshadow real footage. A character in this movie talks about the authenticity behind actual footage, and that's something I think more people need to consider. Once Ben starts running, the story drifts a bit. It gets interesting when he meets the other characters who are basically NPCs. The tension isn't about reaching day 30, it's really just about wondering what happens next. And the exposition was pretty expedited. Pretty much all of the backstory and setup was done in the rather brief cold open, and then pretty quickly throws him into the game. So this movie has some fun in it, but it comes nowhere close to being an instant classic like many of Edgar Wright's movies. As an action movie, it's definitely not Baby Driver, and as a comedy, it's definitely not Hot Fuzz, but those are high bars to set. All things considered, this movie was fine. It's stylish and silly, but very flimsy and occasionally kind of second rate. This could be a fun watch at the theater with the right mood set, but honestly, this is just fine as a streaming watch. Maybe don't make a movie night out of it though. Just play it in the background while you're doing something else and occasionally tune in to the absurdities. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really helps this channel grow. I will see you later this week with my review of Sentimental Value, and next week with my review of Wicked for Good.